Good
Okay.
morning, everybody. My name's Tom Grady. I'm the Director of Advocacy and Public Affairs for the Brain Injury Alliance of New Jersey. And in that role, I am the liaison to the Council for the Head Injury Community, which is an advocacy committee of the Alliance. And the purpose of the council is to give people a platform where they can express what they think the needs of the brain injury community are, and then in turn, the Alliance works toward resolving those issues and addressing those questions to the best extent possible. As one of the activities CHIC engages in is Mike at the Mic. And Mike at the Mic is a panel discussion that tends to focus on one subject area. Mike, who is a board member, he is a facilitator. You'll see three panel members on here. And what Mike does is he fields questions from the audience, which is all of you, communicates them to the panel members. The panel members respond, have a discussion in hopes that the audience gets education resulting from that panel discussion. So before we move forward anymore, I'm going to turn this over to our technology coordinator, Chris Hopwood, who's going to explain how to raise your hands to offer up a comment, ask a question, etc. Chris?
Morning, everyone. Just a quick, kind of brief tutorial. So what you're going to do is when you want to ask a question, you're going to hover over your name in the attendees section. You'll have a button there that says raise hand. So you're going to raise your hand, and when one of the hosts sees you, raise your hand, we're going to be able to give you the ability to speak. It's just going to ask you, as soon as we see that, it'll ask you if you're ready, to speak, because it'll open up your microphone, and then you can talk. The other thing is you can always use the chat, and you can always use the Q&A sections down at the bottom of your screen if you have any other questions, if you don't feel comfortable getting on the microphone. All right, that's about it. If anybody has any technology questions during the course of the day, feel free to ask in the Q&A, and I'll be sure to jump in the Q&A and answer any questions in there as I can. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. And Chris, I do have a question already. I'll email this to you. We do have an email from one of the registrants saying that they need a passcode to sign on to this. So I'll do is I'll forward this to you, so maybe you can square this off with this person.
Sounds good.
I won't say the name because I just want to make sure that we respect privacy. So
Gotcha.
thank you. And getting back to the opening statements here, Mike at the Mic, we've had various subjects over the years that we've discussed as a panel. We've done family and brain injury, friends and brain injury. We've done transportation issues. We've done friendship. There's been a few other topics we've done over the years, but we've been doing this for, I think, at least since I've been around, since 2002, with the exception of 1, maybe 2 years. So, and typically these Mike the Mic sessions are very well received. People find them very educational, and we hope you do as well. Just a few housekeeping items before I turn this over to our facilitator, Mike Greenwald. If you do want to join CHIC, please let me know. I will be sending out a follow-up email to all of you. We encourage you to join, and by joining, it's free, number one. And number two, it does kind of give you a platform for two things. One, you will be able to weigh in on what you think the needs of the brain injury community are, and then therefore make a pitch as to how you may want to address them. And then two, you also receive information about services and supports, etc., that may be helpful to you as a person with brain injury. So I would definitely encourage you to join. It does not cost anything. And then lastly, I will be sending out a survey to all of you on the same email, and probably in the Q&A box at the bottom of this webinar screen. There is a possibility it may not work. So if it does not work, Please offer up any comments about your thoughts about this mic to mic session. And we definitely want to hear your thoughts, how we can improve what went well, etc. And with that said, I'd like to turn it over to Mike Greenwald. And thank you for coming to Mic to Mic.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. This is the first time we're trying this not in person, so I really thank you so much. Folks, the dictionary defines the word relationship as an emotional or other connection that exists between people. In this definition, the dictionary uses the term connection, but ignores the fact that this connection can be hugely affected by brain injury. Today, Mike at the Mic will examine relationships after a brain injury with the assistance of you, our wonderful audience, and the following members of our distinguished panel from CHIC. I hope that he's here. I'd like to introduce our first panelist, Richard Anderson.
Hi, I'm here. And as you heard, my name is Richard Anderson. I had a traumatic brain injury in 2004, and therefore I'm permanently disabled since then. I used to be a management worker for the city of New York, but I had to fill a void in my life by becoming a board trustee with the Brain Injury Alliance in New Jersey. And the big key in my life is to brain injury awareness to be brought to, open to the public. And I'm pleased in doing that role. So thank you, and I enjoy having this mic to mic today. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. I'd like you all to introduce you all to our next panelist, Scott Poman. Scott?
Thanks, Mike. So I suffered my brain injury on August 1st, 2017, a few days after I contacted pneumonia without even realizing it, and a few weeks after I had turned 40, and I had already started a midlife crisis, wondering what the allegedly second half of my life would be, and I had no idea what I was in for. So anyway, as far as the circumstances go, just the very short version is that I contracted pneumonia. The doctor misdiagnosed it, sent me home, and I ended up collapsing the next day. I fell backwards, hitting my head on something sharp, yet still managed to wander around my apartment before collapsing again entirely in my bathroom. And by the way, I remember none of this, but the evidence points in that direction. So I got rushed to the hospital after calling 911. My pneumonia was treated for the next few days, but other than a few stitches in my head, my brain injury was not treated because honestly, there really is no medical treatment for most brain injuries. So anyway, so within a month, I ended up I was living in California at the time. I forgot to put in that part. So I ended up moving back to the New York, New Jersey area to be near my immediate family so we could come up with a plan for me. And yada, yada, yada. After about 1.5 years of hospitalization and assisted living facilities, I was able to start a life, become independent again with a lot of help from new friends, my family, a little bit of luck, a little bit of determination. So I've been in Somerville, New Jersey ever since, where I'm coming to you live right now. So I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Scott. Our final panel member is Michelle Polk. Michelle.
Thanks, Mike. My name is Michelle Polk, and I have worked as a guidance counselor and a classroom teacher for 35 years in both elementary and middle school in New Jersey. At the end of March 2014, I had a stroke. My husband and I at that point were returning from Atlantic City, and I was driving. It was a short getaway. And he noticed that I was driving rather erratically and I was slurring my speech. At that point, he asked me to pull over, which I did, and he took over the wheel and we continued home. I went to work 2 days thereafter, realizing that what had happened to me was in fact a stroke. At that point, it was suggested by my son, who was a paramedic, that I had two choices. One is that he would come up to Mountain Lakes to get me down to Robert Wood Johnson, or my husband could drive me. The rest is history. We drove down to Robert Wood Johnson. I stayed there for 2 nights, and I was diagnosed with a stroke and have been on my journey since that point in time. Now, finally being able to work as a substitute teacher prior to COVID and volunteer at hospitals, again, prior to COVID. So I appreciate being here, and hopefully my journey might help some other people who are our audience. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks so much, everybody. That's our panelist. And I hope that the audience will ask as many questions as they possibly can. I'm going to start it off with one. Okay, this one is for Scott. Scott, in a relationship after a brain injury, who loses the most, the survivor or the significant other? Scott?
That's a really good question, and I've wrestled with this for a long time because I think about the effect that I've had. I mean, it's a very basic question, but a complicated answer because I've often thought about the effect that my brain injury had on the rest of my family. And just a bit of extra background. My niece actually had an acquired brain injury a little over 2 years before I had my brain injury. So my family's been really busy. But in my case, I can tell you that it was, in terms of emotionally, it's a lot harder for people who are the caregivers from the point of view that you have to watch the person, like when watching my niece and then, my brother-in-law and my sister, and to, a lesser extent, but still a massive extent for the rest of our family, watching my niece and watching her struggle and try to regain, speech and walking and talking and being strong for her, it is a really hard thing to do because, she, and then after when I had my brain injury, we had to do the work, but at the same time, the people who are around you, they're the ones who sort of have to be your support system. They have to be strong and find that inner strength because people who have these kinds of injuries can't make it without support. So emotionally, it was, for lack of a better word, easier. And with my brain injury, because every once in a while I would just have a complete breakdown. And I was allowed to have that breakdown because I'm the one with the injury. But as the support team, you can't do that, at least not in front of the person with the injury. You have to be stronger than they are. You have to kind of be their rock, So and that's a hard thing. Like sometimes, like if I was in the room with my niece, I'd have to run out and start crying, and my sister would have to say how, kind of like try to turn it into a joke for my niece. So that was a very difficult thing. So anyway, so the short answer after all this background is that emotionally it can be very difficult. It's difficult for everyone, but it can be especially difficult for caregivers to watch, to feel the pain inside and still have to be strong. And as far as being a survivor, the part that I found most challenging, especially early on, is there's no break. Like as a caregiver, I mean, yes, you're caring for that person, but you can step outside, take a deep breath, get a drink or whatever. But like having the brain injury and living with it every second and trying to learn how to process it was a very difficult thing. So it's a two-pronged answer depending on which aspect of it. But I'm glad as a brain injury survivor that I've been able to pull through, and as I've been able to pull through, it's made it easier on the caregivers. So that's about the best answer I can give, even though I've had years to think about this.
Thank you, Scott. Are there any comments from our panelists? Richard?
Yeah, sure. I certainly have a lot to say. I'm going to try to explain that the number of years that expire in the relationship that goes on, like for instance, I use my life as an experience. I was married 22 years when I had my brain injury, and now I'm married 38 years. Because I had 22 years, a lot of water has been under the bridge. And what happens is that in the beginning years of the brain injured relationship with me and my spouse, the empathy is very strong in the beginning. And what happens, because there's a long relationship of 22 years, the caregiver, my wife, has the default of their system comes back to thinking of how I used to be before I was injured. And they don't see the changes in me as easy. And that's the problem, that I've become more acceptable about my differences, about what's happened to my brain. But I think what happens to people of your caregivers, like my spouse, they lose some of their empathy because they keep, it's hard for the new years of my brain injury, post my brain injury, to overlap the prior years that I've had with her. And they want me to sort of speak, wish I was like I was before. And that's my explanation, if that's understood. Thank you.
Richard, I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Well,
Go ahead, Michelle.
Okay, Rich, I totally agree with what you just said, and oftentimes we don't necessarily agree. But as it turns out, in my situation as well, my spouse has an expectation of who I am prior to my brain injury and how come I'm not the same person today as I was then. I don't have 38 years with him, but a little less than that, but the same expectation. In order for him to better understand brain injury, because he truly was pretty clueless about it, we didn't even identify it when I was driving home at that point. He went to St. Lawrence, which was where I was getting treated, and there was actually a caregiving group, a group of caregivers there that helped him to identify some of the signs and symptoms that I was going through, because it wasn't necessary, or it couldn't be that I was going to be fixed and be who I was. Even today, my children feel as though, where are you? You're not the same person. Well, you're not the same person. You take
Right.
on a different persona today than you had then. Some of my dearest friends don't necessarily identify that because they have changed as well. So we have changed together in the same way, whereas a spouse is seeing you 24/7, if you will, and they don't necessarily see the differences. So yes, I agree totally with what you said.
I
And
agree with you.
Thank you, Michelle. Are there any comments from our audience? Okay, I will start with the next question. This one is for you, Rich.
Sure.
How is communication of feelings so very important for all those who are part of a relationship?
That's communication of feelings.
Yes.
Well, certainly it's hard to, well, I don't have as trouble with relating my feelings because I have what's called PBA, which is pseudo-bulbar effect, which as a result of my brain injury, and it changes my emotions. And emotions related with a lot with feelings. And so I don't have no inhibitions to hold back my feelings, where some maybe before I was injured, I would hold things internalize it more. And so I have an easy way of sharing of what I feel within myself, because maybe the PBA, the neurological problem in my brain, allows me to speak more fluently, to a fault, unfortunately, because I speak too well, too easy, good and bad. But it's hard for me to explain other than when I'm explaining about relationships and explaining the feelings of it. Uh, it's best to always try, even if it doesn't come out with the best bedside delivery, but instead of to keep it within your soul and to let it fest inside yourself, it's always better to try to release some of those feelings with the caregivers of your life or your friends, to let it out, even if it's not delivered perfectly well, because communication is important. Thank you.
Mike,
Yes.
I have a question from Gina Marie, and I found a strategy as a side note here to indicate that a person's raising their hand. When you see
Yes.
me come on video, right now, this will assume I have no questions in the queue. When you see me come on
I see.
video, that'll be an indicator that there's a question. So what I'll do is I'm not even going to tell you who it is. I'll just let the person go. Does that sound right?
It's okay with me.
All right, cool. So Gina
Does
Marie,
that
go right
work?
ahead. You're muted, Gina Marie.
Okay. I had to wait for you to pop up my box because I can't see anything. Good morning, everybody.
Oh,
Thank you
okay.
for having this. This is awesome sauce. I appreciate. I just have a suggestion real quick, and I apologize because I know this is a rude way to do it. But Mike, you're so awesome sauce at this. If because we're on Zoom, there's a little bit of delay. Like raised my hand and I was typing question, and I don't think you guys were able to seize it because we're not together in that building, so you can't like seize it. And you just moved forward. So if you could just pause for a second or two to let us like the technologies to catch up, I'd be appreciate because maybe others want to do that too, and they're trying to do it too. I have a question about the support and the response that the Richard and the Michelle talked about with your caregivers. Like it seems to me that there's a little bit of a gap of the expects. Like we're creatures of habit, so we want that to come together. I'm trying to find, oh, there's my question. Okay, I wrote down, support always be the separates for the care person and the survivor. Is UB thinks that maybe sometimes we can group together to help build a better connect, to fill the gaps and create better relations with the communicates. So maybe the frustrates or the expects will lessen and build betters. It seems to me like Richard with his marriage, he had a great foundation. So if the bones are strong, you could still build upon. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, very, very nice choice of words you use. Bones strong. That's good. They're not cracked. They're cracked, but they're not broken.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, you can. That's all I can say right now.
Gina, are you suggesting that, in some of the relationships that you have, they're not strong enough to continue because of your brain injury?
I don't know if strong enough is the right way to put it. Like I know everybody likes to use normal since this virus happened. Oh, we got to get back to normal. I don't believe in normal because everybody has some layer of what's that word? Dysfunctions.
Yeah.
Everybody's got baggage. Nobody wants to like that word, like, oh, I have no baggage. You have experience, you have baggage. You go on trip, you lose your luggage, you go bananas because your baggage be gone. So of course we have baggage. Life experience be baggage. I want to propose, because we seem to be going around and around with this issue with relations and connections and support. I guess what I'm suggesting is maybe the alliance could create something where we come together with our support structures, or that's wrong word, maybe just the care people, and care I'm using loosely because some of them are a bit abusive and destructive, to try and create a better, lack of word, alliance with the survivor. It seems like
Well,
we're only scratching the surface and we keep just digging at it, but we never find the fossil, but we know it's there because there's this disconnect, there's this gap always existing because we treat it separate instead of maybe collaborates together somehow. Like we're not going to learn if it's disastrous if we don't be tries.
okay, Mike, can I
Go ahead,
respond to that?
Michelle.
Okay,
Go, Michelle.
Gina Marie, in response to that, I had said very clearly that I was clueless related to the fact that I was having a stroke. My husband was equally clueless about having a stroke. Basically, my mode of treatment upon discharge from Robert Wood Johnson was to go to St. Lawrence in order to get support and help. Now, I was the victim. So I was going to get help on Oak Tree. I went there probably 3 times a week for help. My husband would sit around outside waiting for me. And that became very apparent that I needed more than that because I was getting better and he wasn't. So what occurred was I went to another location where I went once a month and he went once a month. He drove me there because I wasn't allowed to drive at that point, and he went to a room with other caregivers, and I went to a room with other victims. And then the caregivers and the victims got together. We had a conversation with a facilitator who helped us along to keep on task. So what I'm suggesting is available, but not necessarily something that the Alliance would be able to do, because our goals with CHIC are a little bit different. However, they do have resources available for us to tap. Unfortunately, for you, your location might not be as close to where it was that I received my help and assistance. But not only did I receive help and assistance, my husband received help and assistance. So as I was getting better, he was getting better. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you
And the
for that
quality
input,
of life
Michelle.
improved on both of you because of it.
Correct. Correct. That's why, from my
Thank you so much,
standpoint,
Gina Marie. I appreciate it.
thank you, Mike.
Tom?
Comments?
Tom?
Did you
Tom, are you
mute
You're
him
muted,
yet? 'Cause I
Tom.
can't see nothing.
I'm sorry. We do have a question. I'm going to leave the person's name out in case this person wants to remain anonymous. Then I got
Okay.
a question from Lois. We'll go after this one person. And actually, I have a question. So,
You're not allowed. You're not allowed to ask a question.
oh, this is relevant. Trust me. I have to listen to Richard. Anyhow, this person asks, as a friend of someone with TBI, what is your advice on what's most helpful so that we can do the best to help our friend? For example, being mindful of turning car radio off, so not as to disturb them, etc. It seems to me the general theme here is that they want to try and do what they can to help their friend out. So I'll throw that out there, and then Lois will be up next.
Yeah, I'll try to field this one because I'm the one who often has issues with friends and family kind of like treating me, quote unquote, getting back to the Gina Marie's point about normal. It's like there's a certain, I guess the word that I've heard a lot is baseline. And especially as someone who, from the moment of my injury, I was able to basically talk and communicate the way I'm communicating now. I had major problems socially, some of which were like old problems that were unearthed, I think, from my childhood that I thought I overcame, and I mostly did. But this set me back, and other things were just brand new. So I have all kinds of sensory issues. Like Richard has problems with, or had his taste and smell taken away. For me, my hearing and vision got all scrambled, and it was it was and still to some extent is a challenging experience. So like I'll just be hanging out with people or talking to people, and then they'll just kind of get really loud. And it's ironic because everyone always tells me that I'm too loud, but my voice projection is not even so much a volume thing; it's a frequency thing, where it's almost like if someone gets excited, or a motorcycle goes by, it's like a jet engine like literally flies over my head. Or just anything with like lights, like strobe lights. Yesterday I was walking by ShopRite, and like one of the lights was a strobe, and I started to panic. Just really basic stuff. When I first had my brain injury, I was scared by fire hydrants because they were red, and like my brain was like sounding an internal alarm. These are things that can't be seen. So it's like you have to explain to the people as a brain injury survivor and not get angry, because it's like that what they're doing, they're well-meaning, they're just trying to spend time with you or whatever, and you have to kind of let them know that it's too much, and you have to do it in a way that doesn't hurt their feelings, even though internally you just want to scream because it's too much. And it's been an adjustment for me. So I think that the most important thing is that if I do come across, if something does upset me, that I make it a point to know, hey, this isn't really me. This isn't coming from my personality. This is coming from my brain injury. And if I do snap at them, apologize right away. let them know I didn't mean that at you. That was my nervous system. This happens with my nephew. My nephew is super sensitive, and he'll be playing around and he'll try to startle me, and it'll succeed, but it'll go too far, and he just breaks down because he sees his uncle freaking out. So you just have to kind of explain, look, this is part of it. And it's in a period adjustment for everything. Getting back to Mike's original question, who's it harder on, the caregiver or the person with the injury? And the answer is, it's in different ways. It's hard on both of them, but you can communicate in a way that makes it easier in time. And just be patient. And I think that's the most important thing: patience and compassion.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Scott.
Sure.
Tom. Can't hear you.
Lois is up.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, I guess you can't see me. That's interesting. Well, anyway, doesn't matter. I wanted to compliment Michelle for what she shared as far as the caregiver and the brain injured person going to these meetings. These support group meetings are so important for both people involved. So important. I know my husband and I, he had a stroke 13 years ago, so I'm his caregiver. But when we first started out, he did not want to go to any of the meetings, and I needed to go because I needed to see how other people survived this whole stroke thing and how our lives were changed. And I really had a hard time dealing with the whole thing. And I think I had a problem with acceptance. And I've noticed through the years, that's what a lot of other people have problems with, is that whole acceptance of how things are going to be, that it's never going to be so-called normal anymore. And I think Michelle hit it on the head, or I don't know, maybe Gina Marie said too, if their foundation was good to begin with, that you see that those relationships really hang in there. I'm trying to think of all the other stuff because you guys are really sharing so much good stuff. But this whole relationship thing, I've noticed with our friends, some of them just don't understand, and they probably never will because they're never living in this situation. I think nobody really fully understands unless you're really living in the situation, how
True.
you deal with this stuff. And I'm the one that seems to have to reach out to them to get together with them, because sometimes they don't know what to say. They don't know how to handle things. And they kind of exclude my husband from talking to him rather than to both of us when we're together with other friends. And another interesting thing that I always see is, or hear from them, if we haven't seen people in a while, they think my husband has recovered for some reason from the stroke, that his right side is going to start working again and his right leg is going to start moving again. And that ain't going to happen. But people just don't get it. And that part I have to understand how they deal with it or not deal with it. But again, we do the reaching out to people. We don't wait for them to reach out to us and say, hey, you want to get together? Because I don't know why that works that way, but I just thought I'd share this stuff. And I'm sure I have a lot more to say, but right now I'm enjoying what everybody else is sharing. I really am.
Thank
Thanks.
you so much. You have a comment? You go ahead, Michelle.
Lois, I have to commend you because I think what's going on in your world is the fact that you have gotten to a point where you're very much more accepting of what your husband has presented. Unfortunately, in my world, the expectation was that I was going to be the same as I was before. So my husband was taking on more roles and responsibilities, and I was fighting him tooth and nail because I was able to drive and I'm able to cook and I'm able to do all the things I was able to do before, not at the same speed. And there are some shortcomings, don't get me wrong. Like we decided today to have this meeting and I couldn't find my bio. It was like, I looked all over the house for the bio. I purposely didn't say anything to him because he would say, what else is new? You always place things. If that's the only issue that I have, so be it. I can't remember what I do with the things that I'm supposed to, but I had that before. So it wasn't like it's any different. There might be a difference in frequency, but certainly the journey has been one that we've both shared. You're right that people don't get it. The only way that somebody gets this is if they've lived it and they walk the walk.
Yep.
Recently, I contacted one of my friends, and I'm shocked because she told me her husband recently had a stroke. And I was like, so tell me what they're doing and what you're doing and how is he? You know, those kinds of questions. And she was kind of clueless. She didn't share with me what I shared, that, you know, he needs help as the victim and you need help as a caregiver, because unfortunately I just didn't have the time to go into my talk. But at the same time, my walk had been through RWJ, it had been through St. Lawrence, and I guess I went and reached out to a number of different support groups in order to help me, and then turnkey it to other people who are going through similar experiences. So it's a journey. You learn from your experience as a victim, and you learn from your experience as a caregiver to share that journey because other people can benefit.
Michelle, thanks so much.
Thanks.
Tom, you wanted to get somebody else?
Yes, actually, I was in the queue, and then following up is our old friend Jesse Clark. I haven't seen him in a while. So my question is very, very personal. My father had a stroke back in late February 18th to be exact. He made a unbelievable recovery. There's a little history here. Within the first 5 minutes of him taking him home, he lights up a cigarette.
Knew you were gonna say that.
Yeah, you know it. And
Well, we're
You know-
creatures of habit.
well, it gets even worse. This past weekend, find out that he doesn't have his blood pressure medicine because he has to wait for mail delivery. He's not willing to pay like $13 to get a temporary
Pills.
supply. Part I'm trying is, and I'm opening all these details because I'll be here for an hour discussing these issues. I love my father. He's driving me up a wall because it's as if he fights us on everything that we're trying to do to help him out, whether it's trying to get a cleaning service in, whether it's encouraging him to eat better, stop smoking. I mean, fights us on everything. And, I wake up every day, this is no lie, thinking with some phone call of him either having a stroke or he's dead. I gotta be honest with you, but I think the question here from a relationship standpoint is that has anybody here really ever gotten to a point, or maybe their significant others know, how do I wouldn't quite say a caregiver right now, I'm dealing with feelings of why, I'm hitting my head against the wall here. I almost feel like giving up on him, quite honestly, but I feel guilty if I don't try to do something, but I do something, it doesn't work. I get caught on every single thing. It's not just me talking, it's my brother, it's my father's good friend, or good cousin. He's very difficult to deal with. It's as if he doesn't want help. But in the end, when something hits the fan, I'm going to be the one who's going to be dealing with the issues because I'm his power of attorney for health. And that's going to be stressful in and of itself. There's a reason why I've lost hair and started turning gray in the past couple of years. So anybody has insight on that, I greatly appreciate that.
Does anybody want to comment on that one?
I will.
Go ahead,
I will
Michelle.
Okay, so I guess, Tom, I'll share my experiences with my stubborn mother, may she rest in peace. When she was extremely stubborn and very difficult to deal with. I eventually had to set her up to do things related to her eating habits. I was Meals on Wheels. Related to doctor's visits, we drove her when she was alive and she was living Actually, she was sometimes even living with us. But I think the thing that worked the best for this was that I took me out of the picture and I put somebody else in the picture of being the bad guy, somebody that she respected. She respected her doctors immediately. So if I had her doctors get involved in chatting with my mom, it worked. If I had somebody not personally involved with her, not my son, not my husband, it worked. So getting it out of me and feeling the guilt actually did work for my mom. So it could be a rabbinic, it could be a religious leader, it could be anybody that's not involved, that could be the bad guy. I always found that that would work with mom.
You got a good point there, Michelle, because we do know that my father tends to listen to people. Put this, his cousin can get away with saying things to him that I can't get away with saying, or my brother can't. Certain friends can do the same thing. Comes down to me or my brother in a lot of cases, who's actually a counselor, a therapist. It's like goes right over the head. And but I have noticed that certain people he won't give any grief to, and I appreciate that that insight.
Tom, I'm sorry for interrupting you, Tom. I have, you know how me and my wife, right?
Mhm.
I break her. I'm very difficult at times, and like I'm like your father, and you're like my wife. That what happens though is your bedside delivery to your father or my wife to me. If it's better to try to be very peaceful in your way of sharing information about frustration about your father or her about me, because I'm gonna rebel more to an angry disposition being told something. And same with your father. I think we both have a better chance if we are told the end that what we're doing is inaccurately good. If we're told peacefully in a very loving, daring way, we might be able to contemplate better what we're being told than to rebel to what being told in a bad bedside. And we just continue to do the same stuff. We do it worse, not out of spite, but we don't want to hear you talking to us. So we block it out. And so that's all my advice.
Well, Rich, I agree with you within reason. Where my father is, we try to approach it that way. It doesn't work. My father was a high-ranking police officer.
Yeah.
And he's used to being told, say, this gets done, that gets done, whatever. I'm learning that gloves have to come off sometimes. And I don't like being this way, but otherwise you try to approach it peacefully. He's not going to listen anyhow. He doesn't listen.
Yeah.
It's the truth. I see what you're saying, and I appreciate it. I think I thought about that, but I think in this case,
well, it's better for you for your own personal health. Even if like he doesn't want to change, and you're biting the head to the wall, it's better. Then really, that's when you start to let go. You say, all right, go ahead, do it yourself, because you're gonna take yourself down with him by you getting upset all the time.
Yeah.
So,
that's
what you gotta
Thank
do.
you.
Tom, if I could just add something real quick, I can't, that I have, not to the extent that you have, but I suspect as the years go on, I'll probably have more experience with it. But outside of the scope of what we're talking about, I do have a little bit of experience with, dealing with relatives that need help, and it goes beyond anything that I can give them. And it sounds cliche and generic, but I think, what Michelle and Richard are saying is great, where, there's certain things like don't bite off more than you can chew. I know he's your dad, and obviously you have a connection that is only understood by you, but we all know what it's like to have a loved one where we want to help them, but there's only so much we can do before it starts coming back against us. It's the law of diminished returns. So given that you are someone who is very vocal and very connected, just even if it doesn't come naturally to you, reach out to the extent that you can and offload some of the burden on you and your brother. And I think that'll probably help everyone for what that's worth.
No, worth a lot, Scott. Thank you.
Sure.
Now
Listen, do we have any other questions coming in from the audience, Tom?
I guess I'm going to switch off from my selfish hat here. Well, actually, selfish being part of the discussion. There was a question.
Definitely not selfish.
There was a question from Jesse Clark, followed up by Joe Caminiti. Joe Caminiti, here we go. Jesse? Allowed to talk, there we go. You should be allowed to talk. Hold 1 second, please. Jesse, you're on.
I'm on.
You're on. How you doing, my friend?
Right. Wow. I had quite a morning here. I've been trying to get on. I thought I was on the panel. I've been fighting with the computer all morning. God forgive me. I'm a little frustrated here.
Understandable.
Little being an astronomical understatement. I just wanted to say to that one person about being getting frustrated at the people that don't understand you and then apologizing. With me, that would be I mean, I just blow up. There's like no stopping me. This happened with my ex-girlfriend about 15 or so years ago, and I just totally blew up at her. I remember outside at one point, and I had to keep, I just apologized so profusely to her, and we were able to get past that, but I just felt so terrible about it. And since then we'd enjoyed another oh god, that relationship went on for like total of 18 years. And then she came down with early onset of Alzheimer's, and that's a long story in and of itself. But anyway, that's pretty much all I really wanted to say, and just that I can really relate well to to a lot of what everyone is saying here. And it's kind of like for me to go into it all is just kind of pointless, just because I have a lot to say about my accident was in 1984, so I can relate real well, like a lot of what everyone is saying. So it would just be pointless for me.
Thank you, Jesse. I really appreciate it. It was also good seeing you, or not seeing you, whatever.
Yeah, and by the
Good
way,
hearing
Mike,
you.
and by the way, Mike, you look a lot better than I thought you would look. Really, you do. You look really great.
That's a sick fucking compliment.
I guess. Thank you.
Damned with faint praise.
I should have just said you look really good. That's funny.
Yeah, that's better.
I think I'm
Otherwise,
gonna
you
mute
look like
Jesse
shit.
now.
What's that?
Okay.
No, I
I'll
heard.
mute Jesse now. Only kidding you, Jesse.
It sounds like we have a further comment from Joe Caminiti.
That's
Joe.
correct.
Yeah, Tom, my mom is just like your father. And she'll drive me crazy. I could tell her and she'll drive me crazy. And then after that, she'll make my head hurt so bad that it's not funny. And the only thing I could do is just go upstairs in my room and lock myself in my room.
And you're not being punished.
Walk away.
And your mother's not the one with the brain injury. You are.
No, yeah, I'm the one with the brain injury. No, but my mother has, she forgets stuff. And you could tell her 1,000 times, and she'll keep on telling you, she'll keep on telling you some other stuff, and she'll just drive you crazy,
I guess we know what Richard thinks about that answer, but anyway, brain injury is difficult to get through, whether you're talking about a family member or a personal relationship. These relationships are very difficult to get through. And it's not only if you have a brain injury, but for some reason, brain injury sort of magnifies everything that happens to you. And you remember things, even though you don't remember a lot, you remember things a lot more when you have a brain injury.
Yeah.
Listen, are there any comments on anything? Because if not, I do have another question, but not necessarily. Okay, I'll ask it right now. I'll ask this one of Rich.
Uh-oh.
Rich, how does a relationship change after one suffers a brain injury? You have a relationship you mentioned for 22 years, and then you had a brain injury. Did this relationship change, or did it get better, or what?
No, in the beginning, it always gets better because there's a lot of empathy, and I hate to use the word sympathy, but there's so much support in the early years that your caregiver, whether it's your spouse or your children or your friends, people who are connected to you in the beginning years of post brain injury is very strong, and they're very supportive. It's just what happens that it doesn't stay that way. There's always going to be a form of love and empathy over the years, but not with the same pace that it came in the early years. And that's unfortunate, but it's a reality. And it's not an unfair thing. It's fair because that's normal life. That things wear. Time passes in good and in bad ways. And that's all I can keep repeating by saying is that the relationship in the early years is strong and very loving. And while it's just not the same over time. And doesn't mean you're going to get divorced, doesn't mean anything like that. You're not going to kill each other, but it becomes more straining and draining of the relationship. But don't give up. Don't give up in life, man. That's it.
Thanks, Richard.
Well,
Does anyone have a comment on that one?
Yeah, I'll comment real
By
quick.
the way, if you're in the audience, you could have a comment also. So please feel free.
Yeah, just real quick.
Go ahead, Scott.
It's weird. It's weird for me because I feel like my whole post brain injury experience is almost like a spin-off show because leaving where I'd lived for almost 20 years, and then thanks to the modern technology, I got back in touch with people after I felt stable enough. But the cast of characters in my life now are completely different, with the exception of my family. But I can tell you that, yeah, it's hard because especially when they sort of see you as who you used to be and you feel different, and there was a certain amount of shame, even though it wasn't my fault. I couldn't relate, I couldn't interact the way I used to, and at first it was sort of like I was kind of I struggled with the idea that I was never going to be who I used to be, and it almost became once I let that go, the relationships sort of rebuilt themselves. Again, with my family, because my friends and coworkers and whatnot, I haven't seen them since. Just emailed and Facebook, which is good enough. But in terms of people that I used to know and be around, my family, my niece, my nephew, and everyone else, yeah, it's a struggle. But again, as long as you kind of let go of the past as much as you can, and just kind of accept how things are and just build from there. I found that makes it a lot easier or less difficult rather, when you're not trying to force it.
thank you.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to go personally.
Thanks,
I guess
Scott.
in the very beginning stages, I was living up in Morris County, and because of the fact that I had the brain injury, we relocated and sold our house up in Mountain Lakes and came down to Middlesex County, if you will. And because of that, we had to rebuild. So I not only had to rebuild who I was, but friendships and relationships down in where we presently live. So I think in some respects, Scott, you're sharing something very similar because you were out in California and you moved back to the East Coast. So you're rekindling relationships that maybe you had with other friends, but family was always there to support you. For me, as I came down here to Middlesex, I found myself meeting new people. And those new people had no idea who I was. So it became very easy for me to, meet up with new people as Chick. You guys don't know who I was. You know who I am. So with that said, there's nothing, including Richard, there is not a button that I wear that I am a victim, and I do not wear it across my forehead that I had a TBI and I had a stroke. So people don't know. So therefore, I am who I am now, and that's who I meet up with. My family, on the contrary, are the ones who struggle. My husband is the one who struggles the least because he went ahead and interacted with other people who were in fact caregivers. And some of those caregivers gave him great insight into what to anticipate and expect. And they also shared something with him that I found was invaluable. It was Lumosity. Lumosity is something that you can actually get on your computer, and you kind of enhance your executive function. So rather than going to a counselor, I was on this Lumosity for about 1.5 years, which helped me with my recall and my skills and, that sort of thing. So that was invaluable. But again, that was something I received from my husband, who had gone to a support group for caregivers. And one of the people there in attendance shared how useful that was for his son. So he picked up on it and signed me up. So I think that helps with people kind of getting back to a new normal, in quotes, by kind of relocating and meeting new people rather than taking baggage, as Gina Marie was talking about with us. It's a clear slate.
Okay.
Thank you, Michelle.
So thanks, Mike.
Richard, you
Nothing else.
what? Do you wanted to say something?
No.
Actually,
Oh, okay.
Mike,
I saw a green light, but Tom, you must have something for me.
Jeannie Marie has a comment, and just for time, Mike, we're at 11:02 at the moment.
Okay.
So FYI, Jeannie Marie is on.
He is. I thought I'd be muted. I can't see myself, so I don't know if I'm muted or not.
You can talk.
Oh, you hear me?
Yes.
It's a good thing I wasn't cussing. I have no idea what my thought bee was, because it was when Richard was talking and then Scott and Michelle went. I do want to say something since I have the platform. I value you guys so much. There's not enough words for this program. And
Don't cry.
Gina Marie, we thank you so much.
it means a lot.
God bless you, Miss.
Gina Marie, you got to understand that we're all in the same position as you.
No, we're
But I
not.
have to tell,
No,
yes,
we're not. I'm a
let me
family
tell
member.
you,
I moved.
there is light at the end of the tunnel. You just have to keep on plugging. I felt the same way.
Yeah, no.
I couldn't drive, I couldn't work, I couldn't. I was so tired of hearing how much I couldn't do that I pushed myself harder. And you know what? You can get there. You just have to have that faith. And I'm surprised Richard hasn't said that.
Because just because I cry, it's not a negative thing. I'm so tired of people assuming because I cry. These are happy tears. I am so grateful for this program. You have no idea the compassion in the heart that I have, because I met Tom, I met Richard, I met Greenwald. Even I have wonky moments. They tolerables me. I'm meeting more people. They're Zooming. There's so many great programs out there. A lot of them just not Zoom. They not Cisco. They not whatevers. So I drank the Kool-Aid. I moved to get to a place closer to my families. Then this virus hit. My family is not here for me. I'm still a families of one. There's no proper transport here. It's like you do something one day and the next day you poop the bed with it. That's normals for anybody's. I get it. But it's hurtful to think that, oh, you're crying, so you have no this, that, oh, it gets better. Please, I respect all of you, but please don't try to feed me that it gets better, because I feel like we're back to Nancy Reagan, just don't say no to drugs, and that not work. One size not fit all for everybody. I'm crying because I want to give my gratitude that my heart feels full because this program is alive and you continue to push to connect with us. And I'm very grateful for that. I'll shut up now. You can mute me again. Thank you.
You
Jean
did great.
Marie, tears just show that you're alive. They show you're alive, and we're glad to have you with us and asking questions. Tom, I have a comment from you.
I just want to say thanks, Jean Marie, and I think a lot of kudos has to go to all the chair people who come before us, including obviously Richard Anderson, who's the chairman of CHIC now, and of course Greenwald, who is the and I notice I called Mike Greenwald, but that was just kind of a nice, fun way of describing Mike. But you know, Mike has been at the threshold of CHIC for years, and I know how passionate he is about doing this particular event, Mike at the Mic. And heck, you know, you have more people like Mike and Richard being involved with brain injury. I think the world's going to be a much better place. It already is, because them two are both doing, I think, a very good job in moving the ball forward in terms of serving all the people who are impacted by brain injury. There's no other questions at the moment, Mike.
Is there anything else that's coming in from the audience? Because
Not at the moment. No.
okay.
Oh, wait a minute. Harry has a question. Let me unmute him. Go ahead, Harry.
Thank you. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
My name is Harry, and I just turned 50 yesterday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
I've been brain injured since I've been 14 years old. We're going back also to 1984. And you're talking about past or existing relationships. What about a relationship that you don't have that you want?
Harry, that was going to be a next question, talking about the future, because as a brain injured person, you can't live unless you have a future. What do you guys think? Who do you want to ask the question to, Harry?
Anybody who can answer it.
I'll answer because it sort of feeds back into my experience where, you know, leaving the place that I knew as home for such a long time and coming back here as a blank slate. And especially early on, I was so insecure because I was telling people, you know, like this isn't who I really am. This isn't who I was kind of apologizing for myself. And, you know, people would say, you know, I knew it wouldn't make people feel very good. They'd say, oh, you know, you're fine who you are. But like in my mind, it was still embarrassing for me because I was someone who, you know, I cried a lot. I got very scared. I was very bleak about the future, but I didn't want to present that, but I also wanted to be honest. So I think that ultimately, you know, everyone has their own problems, you know, and the important thing is to communicate who you are and what you're going through, but also to do so in a way that you understand the other person and that, you know, they don't know you. And I'm not saying that it's a good thing to just apologize for yourself, but just to kind of explain, you know, your situation right off the bat, you know, when appropriate, and just try to, you know, maybe make it more gradual. And, you know, I think that people who are worthwhile will gravitate for you, and they will have compassion for the fact that you are someone, and not just compassion, but in your case, Harry, admiration for the fact that you have lived with brain injury so long, and you're still going, and you're still trying to reach out. I think that alone is a good starting point with a lot of people, especially people who are worthwhile. That's what I found.
Okay. Where would somebody like myself even go to meet?
in this brave new world, God only knows. Like Chick for me was a great place. All the brain injury, the BIA in New Jersey, I know they have a 5K coming up. So that's going to be in person. So that might be a good thing to inquire about. But support groups, Love Your Brain Yoga. Those are all really good places to meet people. And the fact that we do live in New Jersey and we do have the Brain Injury Alliance of New Jersey and Chick is a really good start. So Chick itself, hey, we're right here, right? You're meeting us.
Okay. Yet I
Bert?
can't see anybody else.
What, you don't see support groups any longer, correct?
Well, no. What I'm saying is anybody else who attends Chick this meeting.
I don't follow.
He
Go ahead, Michelle.
sounds like he's trying to meet people. Harry, are you trying to meet new people, or you're trying to meet people that are brain injured people?
No, new people.
So all I'm going to say is that I don't think you should try to create it as a mission that you got to meet someone. Let them meet you and be more willingness to open up a discussion with someone who seems civil and polite and nice in your experience when you live your day, because you're putting too much weight on your shoulder by saying or even asking, like, where do I go? Who do I meet? How do I find someone? You're applying a lot of pressure yourself to that task. And what I'm trying to say is that maybe sometimes you don't got to look to find what's in your closet when they're there all the time. Just, it's just an expression, but just be willing to open up your heart to someone who talks to you. And then and from there, that's how love begins. I didn't look out for my wife. It just happened naturally. And I didn't find out, that's how it works.
I understand what you're saying, and I appreciate that. So it doesn't have to be up to me.
Right. It'll come to you.
Right.
Right.
Tom,
Thank
you wanted to say something?
Tom's muted.
We have a comment
Tom?
from both Joe Cabanity and then Gina Marie.
Best place to meet somebody is church. Church, because those people understand.
Thank you, Joe.
Actually, I got a comment on that, Mike, about going to church.
Go.
Yeah, Joe, I actually, when I was single, I did try doing that, but the church actually did not invite me again to come back, because when I walked into church 2 or 3 times, the ceiling started caving in. They couldn't afford to
Get hit by lightning.
hit by lightning. So I guess at the time, it wasn't good for you. So
Well, mine understood. So, mine understood. So it was, was okay. And then and when I moved, a lot of the people here don't understand. So, I just go and write. I just keep to myself and write.
and then Gina Marie.
Okay, listen, I only think we have time for one more question if there's one out in the audience.
Yep, Gina Marie.
Your lips be
Gina
moved, but I
Marie?
can't hear you, Tom.
Hold on
Go
a
ahead.
second. Okay, go ahead, Gina Marie.
She just left.
Oh, nope,
Okay.
she's up now. Go ahead, Gina Marie.
Okay.
Okay.
Gina Marie, you're on.
Okay. Thank you. Joe,
Shoot. My bad.
Laus,
Yeah, sorry about that, Gina
Go
Marie.
ahead.
I
Yeah.
goofed up. I apologize.
we're gonna do a whole new "Can You Hear Me Now" commercial.
Yeah, no, you're good now. I apologize. That was my bad.
I agree with Joe about the church. but sometimes one church not fit all, so you may have to like shop for where your heart feels good to go. And they have a lot of things on the Zoom and stuff. As much as they do a lot on computer now to keep us safe, it's difficult because I short circuit. I say that like my brain is gerbil and that sucker is always spinning. Sometimes it wipes out and be hydroplane. Other times it grips pavement and tears up the highway. But going back to relations is why we did this. And Mike, I appreciate that. It's a topic we continue to visit. And that's why I mentioned before about maybe trying to build blocks to connect the gaps that is to why we have to repeat this to get to help or heals. I don't know the right word, but one of my family members, because some of y'all touched on this, extended family person like that married through their cousin had a brain injuries in an accident like I do. Their experience completely be different. So they compare me to that person and are like, well, so-and-so can work 50 hours and so-and-so this and so-and-so that. And our culture, it's kind of like take a pill and everything will be better. So I lost my question, but I think a lot of our relations after the brain injuries depends on the level of where it was before. And I think all three of them, the Scott, the Michelle, and the Richard mentions that. And it's a big test. Like with Joe said about church, the Bible is full of wonky tests. And I just wanna, I don't know. I don't know what my question was. Sorry, guys. You can unmute me now.
It's okay.
It's all right.
Listen, if there are no further questions or comments, and I don't see Tom coming on, I'm going to have to, well, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody who is an attendee today. Everybody who's sitting out in the audience, thank you so much. And thank you, Michelle, and thank you, Rich, and thank you, Scott, and
You're welcome.
also Tom and Chris. I really thank you. We couldn't have done this without it.
Thank you,
Everybody,
Like,
hopefully we will be able to have Mike at the Mic live again, but if not, we will do it as we have it right now. Before you leave, though, I wrote something down. I'd like you to consider this, since we talked about relationships today. Relationships are important to our existence, whether or not brain injury is involved. I hope that our discussion today gave you a lot to think about, and I hope that you get involved with brain injury if it is at all possible. Thank you so much. Tom?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mike, and to all the panel members. I'd like to give a virtual round of applause for their work today. And I will be sending out a survey. I hope that the survey actually gets to all of the attendees. And if you ever have any ideas or suggestions for any future panel discussions, please feel free to offer them up. And I will write this in an email to those of you who did pre-register through offering up an email. And I think before I end the call, Richard Anderson, in addition to being a panel member today, he's also the chairman of the CHIC. And I thought maybe Richard, maybe you want to close out by saying a message. Not to put you on the spot, but I figured as a courtesy, you may want to say something.
I'll say goodbye, but I feel very rewarded whenever I can involve myself in something to brain injury awareness. And I said that in my introduction about filling a void. It's important that we all have a void in our lives to be filled with something. And I win. I won in many ways when I help other people with brain injury awareness. And that's all I could say. And try to reach into CHIC with the Brain Alliance in New Jersey, or to to any organization that can help you. God bless and stay well. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. And on that very positive note, I'm going to end the call now. Thank you, everybody.